Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to another exciting episode of Carving the Divine TV. My name is Yujiro Seki. I'm a director, writer, and the producer of the documentary Carving the Divine. Carving the Divine is about the Buddhist sculptors of Japan, and I'm ready to present it for the first time in the world. But before I do so, I thought it would be a great idea to introduce basic concept of Buddhism and history of Buddhism, so that when you guys finally watch my documentary, you guys can watch it at the maximum value. So today, we're gonna talk about our last part of Buddhism episode. Yes, we talk about something very complicated, and today, it's gonna get even more complicated. So I'm not gonna even try to explain to you guys what we're gonna talk about today. So we're gonna talk about the Tenbu. Tenbu is translated as a celestial being. I have no idea. So I have a perfect person who can talk about this kind of stuff. So please, I would love to introduce to you Mr. Mark Schumacher. Welcome, welcome.
Yoroshiku onegai itashimasu. Well, I'm not a perfect person. I'm still in the 6 realms of suffering, but the Tenbu is the 4th category that we've talked about. We had the Buddha at the top, we had the Bodhisattva, then we had the wrathful Myo-o, and now we're talking about the Tenbu. And the Tenbu are Hindu gods and goddesses who were defeated, subjugated, and then converted to Buddhism. They all accepted Buddhism and became protectors of Buddhism. This class of deities, to me, is the most interesting and also the most confusing and the most complex. And so I would like to just go to my screen show. Let's get that started. Here we are. And there we go. And can you see the screen?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so we talked about in the last episodes, we talked about here at the highest level of spiritual consciousness are the Buddha, and below them are the Bodhisattva, below them are the Myo-o, and today we're talking about the Tenbu, this class here, who are Hindu, originated from the Hindu pantheon. And I've added an extra photo here that we're not going to talk about them, but below them we have statues of the monks and the bushi, the people who made the statues. And then below that we're not talking about it either, but below that we have dragons and snakes and foxes and creatures who should be part of this chart. The Tenbu, is actually the kanji, the character for heaven. So yes, we can say celestial beings. We could say heavenly beings, celestial beings. But they actually refer to the Hindu diva and divai, the females and the males of the males and the females, diva male, divai female. They refer to a class of India originated gods and goddesses, non-Buddhist originally, who then are converted to the Buddhist pantheon. And the reason the diva, the reason why we translate diva as Tenbu, is because the diva live in paradise. They are high up on the chain that we've been talking about. There's 10 levels. Buddha, Bodhisattva, Myo-o, diva. And then under that comes the humans, and then the animal realm, and the hungry ghosts, and the people who are living in hell. But the Tenbu number in the hundreds, and most of them do not have a cult. People don't worship them independently in this country. They are mostly appear in the mandala of the Shingon school and the Tendai school. So let's just quickly remind ourselves that here at the top we have the four enlightened realms with the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas and the Arhats from the Theravada tradition. Then down here, underneath the white line, we have the six realms of suffering, the six realms of karmic rebirth, the six realms of transmigration. And here at the very top are the Deva, and they live in paradise. They have a wonderful time. It's a big party. But ultimately, even the Devas are still trapped in the wheel of life. They're still trapped in these six worlds. They use up their good karma and they fall back down. And today we're talking about this realm, the Deva realm. Let's just go, here we go. Let's review our last three presentations. The Buddha class here has the lump of knowledge, the third eye, the elongated ears, and the simple gown, simple dress. The Bodhisattva class has princely clothes. They're adorned with the jewelry and bracelets and anklets. And that's one way to easily identify, is it a Buddha or is it a Bodhisattva? Then last time we talked about the Myo-o, the wrathful deities. And these are their fierce faces, fangs, fiery halo to burn away ignorance, burn away evil, and holding weapons to cut through ignorance, and holding a lasso to capture non-believers and bring them back to the light. So these three classes are very easy to identify. Just those simple rules will help you to identify a Buddha from a Bodhisattva, from a Myo-o, a wrathful being. Today we're talking about this class, the Tenbu, which were converted from the Hindu pantheon and adopted into Buddhism and became protectors of Buddhism. And it's going to be fun, I think. The most widely known of the Deva class converted to Buddhism are the Shitenno, the four heavenly kings. And these four kings are normally placed around the central image of a Buddha. And they represent north, south, east, and west. They protect all directions. And they are usually shown standing on top of evil, standing on top of demons. And they're stomping these. Here you can see there's a demon underneath all their feet. Here you can see there's a demon underneath all their feet. And here I have a picture of the demons. The Shitenno they came early to Japan, 7th century. Even before the Hindu deities as a group were imported, the Shitenno were one of the earliest groups of statues to arrive here. Here you can see here. They can be found in China and in Korea and in most of East Asia, representing the four directions, stomping out evil and holding weapons to defend the nation. Now, people might forget down here in the corner, I've given a little picture of a turtle, a tiger, a red bird, and a dragon. Before Buddhism was introduced to China, the Chinese already had four celestial guardians, these creatures. The dragon was spring and the east, and the red bird was summer and fire and south. I mean, this old imagery from China, these four animals who protected the nation, were converted into a Buddhist theme with the four Hindu deities. So now we've got China going from four animals to four Hindu deities, and now these four deities protect the central image of temples. You can hear here too, we see them stomping atop the demons. Okay. Then the diva, we have to go back a little bit. We had some of the Hindu deities were already part of the Buddhist pantheon in the 6th and 7th century. It wasn't until the early 9th century when Kukai and Saicho, around 810, 820, brought back the teachings from China, which included all of these Hindu deities who had been converted to Buddhism. Here at the very top of this particular screen, we see a star mandala. And the star mandala has a Buddha at the very center. And then it has the 7 stars of the Big Dipper are in the inner court. And then the 12 zodiac animals are here in like the second to the last square. And then all around the outside are 28 different diva. They are the protectors of Buddhism, so that therefore they appear on the outside of the mandala. 28, think of it this way. 7 of them represent north, 7 of them represent south, 7 of them represent east, 7 of them represent west. So here we have the same idea. 4 directions. We had the 4 kings that protected the temple. We had the 4 animals of China that protected the temple or the nation. And now we have 28. And the 28 refer to as the 28 constellations, 28 moon lodges, 28 lunar mansions. It was actually a very intricate and accurate calendar of the way the moon changes in each of the months. So here I've just put the 28 diva protectors of the 4 directions in the star mandala. Also, here we have the 4 animals originally from China representing the 4 directions. Now we have the Buddhist Shitenno, the 4 heavenly kings. And we have a 5th. The 4 heavenly kings would protect the Buddha in the center. So there was 5. There was altogether 5. 4 directions protecting the center. And here we see again now a different group of it's called the 10 divas, the 12 divas. Originally it was 8 divas, 10 divas, 12 divas. 8 divas were the 4 directions and the 4 semi-directions: north, south, east, west, northwest, southwest, and so on. The 8 directions. And then they added up and down, heaven and earth, and then they added the sun and moon. So we got 12 of them. And they usually appeared in the 9th, 10th century as scrolls. Here are the 12 as scrolls. And or they appeared as masks. Most of the artwork we have, extant artwork, is either the mask or the scrolls, and they were used in rituals by the imperial court to protect the nation from invasion or protect the nation from sickness or calamity. And here we can see, just down here in this little box, Bonten, which is this one here. Bonten is Brahma from the Hindu pantheon. Brahma was the creator. There were 3 Hindu deities: Brahma, the creator; Vishnu, the preserver; and Shiva, the destroyer. And most of these deities are here inside of this group of 12. The Earth Diva, the Moon Diva, the Sun Diva, the Wind Diva. So we have the 5 elements of China involved too. So it's very complex. We're getting China and India and philosophies that have been around for centuries that are all getting intermixed. It's like a really tasty stew. You know, you put a bunch of vegetables in there and you let it simmer. It's very. Here I wanted to show just quickly. Here is a diagram of the zodiac. At the very center, you have the 12 zodiac animals. Then in the next ring, you have the 12 symbols from the West. There's a zodiac in the West. In fact, this whole idea of watching the stars and mapping the progression of the moon and the sun was also very important in the West, not just the East. So in the West, we have like Sagittarius, Capricorn, Taurus. So here they're shown together with their zodiac animal here in the East. And then on the very outside of the ring, we have 8 Buddhist protectors. But my point here simply is that these ideas stretch not just from India and China, but they stretch from Greece and Turkey and Central Asia all the way into Japan. By the time Japan got all this stuff, it was a huge, monstrous, intermixed stew of Hindu deities, Chinese deities, Korean deities, and then the Japanese added their own deities. So it's very exciting, actually, to me. Here, again, is another picture of the 12 diva of the protecting the 12 directions: north, south, east, west, northwest, southwest, the semi-directional, and then the up and down, and sun and moon. So that's why we have 12. But again, why 12? I don't know. The zodiac has 12. We have 12 months in the year, and so on. So I mean, there's a certain logic happening. Here are the 12 again as they appeared in the Butsuzozi, which was a book that came out in like 1692, which does exactly what my webpage does. It catalogs all of the deities and gives brief descriptions, shows their Sanskrit symbol, shows their Shinto counterpart. It's a brilliant book, which mine is falling apart because I've used it so much. Now, here is something that I'm unsure about. Any visitor to Japan who comes here and goes to a temple will notice 2 statues normally, typically, generally, outside the temple. They stand on the left and the right of the entrance gate to the temple. One has its mouth open, one has its mouth closed, and these are the temple guardians: Agyo, mouth open, Ah, and Ungyo, mouth closed, And they represent birth and death, up, down, black, white, male, female, all kind of polarities, which encompasses everything. Now, here we can see 2 famous Agyo with the mouth open. You're born, and when you die, the holy word Om or Aum is also the same. The first letter in the syllabary is Ah, and the last letter in the syllabary is So that birth, death. These 2, I don't know how to categorize. Where do they fit? They are not part of the Buddha class, not part of the Bodhisattva class, not part of the Myo class. These 2, very famous, they're all, you can find them in China and Korea and all of East Asia. are said to be manifestations of the Bodhisattva Vajrapani, the thunderbolt holder. So in my mind, these two, they would fit here in the Myo-o class.
Oh.
In this class, because the Myo-o are manifestations of the Buddha and Bodhisattva. And so therefore, since where was that? The Neo, the benevolent kings, these two should also be placed in that class as manifestations of the Bodhisattva. And they stand outside the temple gates as guardians. As you walk in, you see them on the left and on the right.
So
but I still don't know exactly. Are they Tenbu or are they Myo-o or where they are? I don't know where to categorize them. That's kind of my guess. Then the most important thing in this presentation about the Tenbu, the Hindu deities, is almost all of them are only known in the mandala art form, in the Taizo Kai and the Kongo Kai, the womb world mandala and the diamond mandala. And they appear here, but they do not have their own cults in Japan. Most of them are unknown, unless you're passionate about the mandala. Most of these deities, these divas, are just not known in Japan. But some of them, a few of them, who we're going to talk about today, a few of them are some of Japan's most popular gods and goddesses in modern times. And here we can see, here's the Taizokai mandala, the womb world mandala. Up here in the northeast quarter, this is where a whole bunch of diva are. They're all thrown throughout this mandala. This is where the diva are located, the Tenbu, because they're protectors of Buddhism. At the very center of Buddhism, we have the Buddha and the Bodhisattvas. But out here on the fringe, we have all the diva. Now, the people the gods and goddesses we're going to talk about now are, there are three, Bishamonten and Daikokuten, who are here in the northeast quarter. Now, northeast, you have to remember too, is involved with a very important concept called Kimon, or the evil direction of evil. According to the mandala theory, there are four gates. There's a gate of heaven, gate of man, and gate, I forget. There's a gate for the demons to enter the world, and that gate is the northeast quadrant. And so Bishamon and Daikokuten are shown up here in the northeast quadrant as especially good at defeating evil and defeating demons. And the other Bishamonten, Daikokuten, the other diva we're talking about is Benzaiten, the goddess of water, the goddess of music, the goddess of all things that flow, like poetry, literature, discourse, and music. So those are the three I'm going to focus on now. Again, notice that they're all on the outer edges of the mandala because they're imported from Hinduism, adopted to Buddhism, and then became protectors of Buddhism. The very center of the mandala are the Buddha and the Bodhisattva. At the very outside of the mandala are the diva. And as you can see, there are something like over 400 deities just in that one mandala. And over 200 of them are diva from India. So today, as I said, we're going to talk about Daikokuten, Bishamonten, and Benzaiten. And here, there's a noticeable trend that when the Hindu deities came to Japan, they were usually wrathful. They had multiple heads. They had multiple arms. and they held weapons. And over time, the Japanese tamed them so that their fierce and demonic forms became peaceful and gentle and benign. So here I'm just showing very quickly, Siva, Daikokuten, came here as a three-headed deity, a wrathful three-headed deity with a skull in his head cap. And then he became essentially a Santa Claus. He became a fat, chubby, happy, jolly Santa Claus with two arms and one head. Benzaiten, the goddess of water, poetry, music, literature, all things that flow, originally came to Japan as an 8-armed deity who protected the nation, a martial deity, protected the nation. But now she's changed into a beautiful 2-armed, one-headed goddess of beauty who plays music. Bishamon Ten, who we'll talk about later too, he is one of the original, let me go back quickly to here. Bishamon Ten is the leader of this group of the 4 Shitenno, the 4 guardians of the 4 directions, the guardians of the nation. In this configuration of 4, he is known as Tamon Ten, but he, among these 4, he's the only one who had his own cult, his own individual cult. And he's always shown holding a pagoda. The pagoda represents the teachings of Buddhism and symbolically represents the relics of the historical Buddha. The pagoda is supposedly holds the ashes and the teeth and the fingernails and the other leftover parts of the cremated historical Buddha. And he also has been, look at this, he's been cutified. He's no longer looking martial, he's looking cute. He's looking cute. The trend is that these martial deities, multi-headed, multi-armed, ferocious, fearful, wrathful deities, over time in Japan have all been tamed, and they're now portrayed as friendly, jolly, happy gods and goddesses, which this is, I find, tremendously interesting. Now here, for example, is Daikokuten. Daikokuten is Siva from the Hindu mythology. Siva was the lord of destruction. There were 2 others. Brahma was the lord of creation, and Vishnu was the preserver, and then there was Shiva, who the destroyer. So it was always a circle of birth, preservation, death. Birth, preservation, death. This is the lord of destruction. And when he came to Japan in the mandala, and here he is in the northeast quarter, protecting the outer northeast quarter, the gate where demons enter. 3 heads. There is another form of him with just 1 head, 2 arms. Here we can see 3 heads, 1 arm, 1 head, 3 heads, 3 heads. Now, also it's wonderful how they translated Siva into Chinese and Japanese. Siva, the Lord of Destruction, is in Japanese Daikoku Ten, great black god, a great black deity. So he would normally be portrayed in a black color because he represented death and destruction. And now, look at this. Here's some really old, I just want to throw them in there. These are all like 9th and 10th centuries of the oldest drawings of paintings of Daikokuten. Then, for some reason, Japan, this is Daikokuten today. He's kind of a fat, jolly guy standing on two bales of rice, holding a magic mallet and holding a treasure sack. And Daikokuten Dei is one of the 7 lucky gods, and he's also the god of agriculture and therefore the kitchen, god of agriculture and the kitchen. So he's gone from this type of portrayal into a jolly Santa Claus. To me, that's amazing. Here then later in the Edo period, they took Daikokuten's image and made him the god of the rice paddy. So instead of holding his magic mallet, here instead he holds what do you call this? A rice scooper, rice scooper. And he's fat and jolly, and he looks like a peasant who works in the field. The god of the rice paddy, Ta no Kami, is also part of Daikokuten's transformation from a fierce, wrathful Hindu deity, multi-headed, multi-armed, into a lovable, jolly Santa Claus. That's to me, that's just wonderful. Here are some of the most applauded sculptors of the Edo period. Enku and Mokujiki made these very playful statues of Daikokuten from one piece of wood. Again, all the attributes are the same. Standing on top, 2 rice bales, holding a magic mallet from which you pound out wealth, and holding a treasure sack. Magic mallet, bales of rice, treasure sack. Magic mallet, bales of rice. Well, here's not a bale of rice, but magic mallet, bales of rice, and treasure sack. And so now look how playful he looks, almost cartoon-like. So this is truly the taming of a wrathful Hindu deity. And the Japanese have now, over the centuries, changed the very nature of the deity into a happy, jolly, good luck charm. Well, even more, the first money that Japan printed in 1885, 1886, included an image of Daikokuten on their money. And the coins also had photos of Daikokuten because he represents wealth. Wealth is agriculture. Wealth is rice. Wealth is food. So therefore, the very first money in the modern era that Japan made included Daikokuten on the coins and on the bills. And where am I at? Here we go, down. Here's just a very quick summary. He comes to Japan as a demonic, multi-headed, multi-armed deity from India and China. And then he's transformed into either a standing noble or a soldier-like, a sitting soldier. And it's only by the 14th century that he becomes fat and stands on rice bales and carries a treasure sack. And then here's like how he looks today. He's, and let's see, whoops, sorry. I've lost my place. Here we are, okay. So anyway, this is like from the 9th century to the 20th century. And it's the same trend for Benzaiten and Bishamonten, the other 2 very, very popular diva from India who have their own cults here in Japan. So let's go to the next one. When Benzaiten, the goddess of water, all things that flow are music, language, literature, poetry, music. She came originally as an 8-armed martial warrior deity. And here we can see too that she looks very peaceful here, but she still has all these arms. This is like from the 8th century. ultimately, Benzai Ten herself was transformed from an 8-armed warrior deity into a 2-armed, one-headed, humanistic god of beauty and music. So here we can see in the mandala, she protects here the West Gate, Benzai Ten, and she's also known or associated with another god called Myo On Ten. Myo On Ten, the wondrous sound diva. Oh, well, so wondrous sound, music, poetry, or orators, speech and so on. So these two deities are essentially Benzai Ten, and they protect the East Gate and the West Gate. Whereas we talked before, Bishamon Ten and Daikoku Ten were protecting the Northeast Gate, which is where the demons could come and enter. There's even a nude version of Benzai Ten. Not many statues, maybe 100 statues or so, are still extant in Japan. I don't know why there was I'm unsure why the people of the 13th or 14th century decided to carve the statues nude. That's still a topic I need to study, but we do have like 100 or so nude statues of Benzai. Jizo Bosatsu was also carved nude. Now here we are with Bishamon Ten, the other, the three deities with their own popular cult in Japan. And Bishamon Ten originally was one of the 4 heavenly kings of the 4 directions guarding the temple. He then became his own independent cult, and he's almost always shown holding a pagoda, wearing the armor of a warrior, holding a pagoda. Well, we won't. Here he is shown in this number 3. He stands atop the goddess of the earth, and he's stamping down on 2 demons. Here, the pagoda is missing, but that's his main attribute. The pagoda represents the teachings of Buddhism and the protection of Buddhism, and supposedly symbolically contains the relics of the historical Buddha, the ashes, the teeth, the fingernail clippings. Those 3, which we just talked about, Daikoku Ten, Benzai Ten, and Bishamon Ten, those 3 in the Edo period were combined into one deity called San Men Daikoku Ten, 3-faced Daikoku Ten. So the central face is Daikoku Ten. On the side is the warrior deity Bishamon Ten, and then on this side is the female goddess of water and poetry and literature and music, Benzai Ten. This particular deity then is called San Men Daikoku. Here we can see Benzai Ten, Bishamon Ten, and in the middle, Daikoku Ten. Then, even more interesting, most people who come to Japan learn about the 7 lucky gods, the Shichifukujin. Now, I always have fun talking to my Japanese friends when we see statues of the 7 lucky gods. And I said, which god is from Japan? And they say, well, they're all from Japan. Well, they're not. Of the 7 lucky gods, Bishamon Ten, Benzai Ten, and Daikoku Ten are all from the Hindu pantheon. Jurojin, Fukurokujin, and Hote are Chinese gods. The only god from Japan in the group known as the 7 lucky gods is Ebis. Ebis is the Japanese indigenous god of fishing, fishermen, and the ocean. So Daikokuten is the god of agriculture and the kitchen, and Abyss as the Japanese god of the ocean and fishing. Those two were paired. And you often see when you go to anybody's home, a lot of people still have statues of Abyss and Daikokuten, the two, the god of the Japanese god of the ocean and fishing, and then the Hindu god of the kitchen and rice and agriculture. But most Japanese wouldn't be able to tell you that. Most Japanese would tell you that all of these 7 gods are from Japan. well, anyway, it's very fun for me. I'm going on too long. Let's just leave it at that. Let me just, what we haven't done yet, and then I'll end. We have the Buddhas, the Bodhisattvas, the wrathful Myo, the Tenbu, who we just talked about, the Devas of India, who were adopted into Buddhism and appear mostly in the mandala, but some of them have their own independent cults, Daikokuten, Bishimonten, Benzenten. We haven't talked about the monks and the Bushi, the people who made the statues. We haven't talked about them. And we haven't talked about a whole new other category, which are the magical, supernatural, mystical animals. We have the dragon, which you see adorning most temples, especially Zen temples have dragon imagery. Almost all temples and some shrines have these protective shishi lions on the eaves of the ceiling on the temples, because these lions are warding off evil, driving away evil. We have the magical shape-shifting fox. We have the magical monkeys who are associated with the Tendai school, the Hiezan, the god of that mountain where the temple is located is his manifestation is a monkey. We have the magical tanuki. We have the magical kappa. We have a number of creatures that is entirely separate from our talk of the 10 levels. You know, Buddha, Bodhisattva, Myo, Tenbu, Diva, humans, and down the line. This category is also very, very complex, confusing, but just fun. And you will find these animals along with the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas and the Myos and the Tenbu. Anytime you go to visit or mostly when you go to visit a temple or a shrine, you're going to find these characters as well. And so with that, I'll call it a day. And my website is onmarkproductions.com. You can go there, click the image of the Buddha to get started, and then it's A to Z, or you can use the search box to search. I'm sorry I went on so long.
Wow, I'm blown away. Yeah, this whole culture is a lot more complicated than that I ever imagined. And I'm a Japanese. As you said, most of the Japanese, they don't have any idea what's going on. They take it for granted.
So when I started too, I thought it's got to be simple. The Buddha, I thought was just one Buddha, but no, there's a lot of Buddhas. And then there's the Bodhisattva, and then I'm still learning. It's never ending. And it's a real adventure. And for me, I can visit temple after temple, shrine after shrine. The more I know, the more I can appreciate the influence of India, the influence of China, the influence of Korea, the influence of star worship, the influence of Taoism, the influence of Hinduism, the influence of Confucianism. Japan is like probably a really good stew, like the recipe I mentioned before. You throw a lot of vegetables in, you throw a lot of sauce in there, and you get a very complex but tasty result.
Yeah, great. So yeah, when I started making my documentary Carving the Divine, slowly but surely I realized it is impossible to cover this entire culture of Buddhist sculptors and sculptures in one sitting. My movie is 98 minutes long, but it's only the beginning, and there are many other aspects to talk about, and this culture is very, very profound. So that's one of the reasons why I invited somebody like you to talk about the actual intensity of this culture beyond my documentary. So I truly appreciate you for coming here and to share the knowledge with us. It's been a great journey. It's been very, very exciting. So thank you so much. So that's it for you guys. I hope you guys enjoy this special episode of Categories of Butsuzo. So we have a special present gift for our viewers. Mr. Schumacher is so generous enough to share the PDF file of the presentations that we did. 4 presentations. I'm so excited, so thrilled. So this means you can go to the presentation anytime on your own time and just to look at it and study it for yourself. So I truly appreciate you, Mr. Schumacher, for doing this.
My pleasure.
Wonderful. So yes, so with that being said, if you think this information is useful, make sure to subscribe my YouTube channel, follow me on Twitter and Instagram, and like me on my Facebook. And that's what we do in the 21st century, and we're gonna keep doing it. And if you want that PDF file, make sure to go to my website, carvingthedivine.com, to download it. So thank you so much, Mr. Schumacher, for this. So see you soon.